This is a presentation of the University of Wisconsin-Parkside.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Outstanding. Well, this morning I had an opportunity to talk and spend some time with young people in the summer employment program, the E3 program, which was very exciting. And I'm excited to be here with you all this afternoon. My name is Hasan Davis, and as you heard, I'm Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Juvenile Justice for the state of Kentucky. I've served as Deputy Commissioner for a little over a year and a half now. I was appointed in November 2008 by the governor. My role as Deputy Commissioner of Operations is responsibility for all the detention, treatment, group home, and day treatment facilities in the state of Kentucky. A daunting task some days, on the good days, a really difficult task the rest of them, but I'm excited to be here. Before I came to juvenile justice, well, I got to show you my kids. That's the obligatory kid shot. Just because that's what this is about, and these are mine. I'm excited about them. They're a lot bigger now. Malcolm just turned 11 2 days ago, and he is 5'2.5", 124 pounds, size 9 men's shoe, and 38 pants. So I'm not sure where this is going, but I hope he learns how to play basketball or something. I mean, he's a very smart kid. He finished the whole Harry Potter series when he was 7 years old, which just blows my mind. Growing up with ADHD and dyslexia, I've never completed an entire book. And to watch him consume words like that has just been an incredible gift for me personally. My young man, Christopher, is 6 now, and he's a little too much like me to be comfortable. Before I was Deputy Commissioner, I spent time as an advisor, Juvenile Justice Advisory Board for the state of Kentucky. I chaired that board for 10 years. And for 3 years, I served as Vice Chairman of the Federal Advisory Commission on Juvenile Justice for the United States and Territories. Our role as the Federal Advisory Commission was to advise the President and the Congress of the United States to the challenges that young people in our nation face and the work we have to do as adult responders to issue those challenges and to move them from those places to better places. It's very important work for me. I'm a lawyer by training, graduate of UK Law School, and a graduate of Berea College for my undergraduate degree. And I wanted you to know that because, I have to kind of justify the reason you're spending half a day with me and make sure that, you all know that I'm copacetic, I've got my credentials. I'm also an actor. I toured 3 one-man shows nationally for about the last 15 years, telling the stories of African Americans in American history. People like York of the Lewis and Clark expedition. I had a chance to portray York during the national bicentennial of Lewis and Clark, to tell his story as part of the national story from Monticello in Virginia all the way out to Fort Clatsop, Oregon, and back to St. Louis. A great adventure for me personally. This is who I am, and I'm very excited about it. But the conversation we're going to have today is about where I've come from, in particular, and the young people you serve, and how you start to see the possibility of where they could be, even from where they are right now. My life started like most of the children we serve, with lots of possibility and potential. Every little quirk that I had was something special that might make me the next great somebody special. But as I got older, things began to change. Instead of saying, you can be anything you want, there was, there's some things you can be, and then there was, maybe not. Being a black male child with a learning disability, ADHD and dyslexia, growing up in the inner city on welfare, a single-parent home, and my sister and I walked in on my father choking my mom out on the couch when I was 6 years old. Short after that, they separated, then divorced. I grew up on welfare. Mom used to give us dollar bill food stamps. You remember those? The brown dollar bill food stamps, back when you had the little booklet. And she'd tear a dollar bill food stamp out in the morning and give each of us a dollar bill food stamp. We'd go to the corner store, about 5 cents worth of candy, because back in the day, penny candy cost a penny. Remember that? And so we would take that candy, and they'd have to give us cash back. And so they'd give us 95-cent hard, cold cash, and we could go to school jingling like the other kids, pretend like we were normal, whatever that is. By the end of the month, things got more difficult. We couldn't buy milk at milk break. We couldn't buy our own lunch, but we survived. We struggled. In kindergarten, they also used to lock me in the code room because at 6 years old, whoever I was becoming, somebody decided it wasn't worth their time, their energy, their passion. Lucky for me, my mama always told me, when you find yourself in a place, you need to figure out what your purpose is and how to make it right. And I realized after day number 2 in the code room that it's also where everybody kept their lunch boxes. So it seemed to me a great opportunity that God had given me on those days when we didn't have money to take care of myself. And so after 3 or 4 days of Susie and I getting her peanut butter jelly sandwich with the crust cut off and Bobby and I getting this fruit cup, somebody had to come check on me in the code room. And I had 7 or 8 lunch boxes spread out around me like a buffet, and they decided that they had to put me back in the classroom to keep an eye on that kid. But what they did when they put me back in the classroom is they re-engaged me, because as an oral learner, as a social learner, I had to be connected with people in order to move forward. And so to put me back in that classroom to keep an eye on me, they gave me another chance to thrive. The young people we serve, the challenge for us is always going to be to find a way, in spite of all of their problems, to still give them something useful for their success, some possibility. I was arrested when I was 11 years old, and it was a turning point. Me and my 5 friends were doing our thing, and we were very justified in what we were doing, because that's how you do it as a young person. You justify every action. And as we were waiting at the police station for our moms to come pick us up, there was a litany of conflict as mothers came. You know, I had to take 6 buses to get here. I had to leave work early and take time off. I'm going to make you go stay with your daddy next time. I'm going to let him lock you up. You know, that was kind of the conversation as other moms came. So by the time my mother got there, I was ready for the fight. You know, I'd been rehearsing. You know, they don't understand. I'm a black man. I got to survive. You know, I'd been practicing all day, right? And so when she got there, she was very calm, and she went and filled out the paperwork, and she got everything together, and we started out, and I was kind of holding my breath waiting for the lecture so I could spill out all this stuff I'd prepared, and we were just riding, and she wouldn't say anything, and I was just waiting, and I was about to turn blue holding all this in, and she wouldn't say anything. So finally I got the courage to look over at her, and she was just crying these huge tears. And she looked down at me, and she said, "Baby, if you could see what I see when I look at you, then you would know how great you were." I couldn't do anything with that. It wasn't what I expected. It was a challenge. And it took me a long time to have the courage to dissect it and start finding out who it was she was looking at, so maybe I could become it, because if she could see that thing, then it had to be there somewhere. That was the first challenge that set me on my course to becoming someone different. But it was a long, long journey. I started alternative school in the 8th grade. I was in alternative school until my senior year, when I was expelled. And I got my GED. Now you do the math and you look at the list, and that's a pretty long list. Most of the kids we serve have a number of those, but you add them all together, and that's a dead-end road. Lots of folks said, well, he's lucky he made it this far. It's amazing that he actually got to high school, let alone stayed there long enough to get expelled. But I got my GED, and I decided I wanted to try something different. Because at this alternative school that I attended, it was a different attitude. The administrator, Dr. Lorraine Wilson, instead of having the attitude that I was her burden, chose to challenge me with her words. She brought me to her office and said, "I know who you are, and I think you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. And all you can do is make me a liar." We talk about expectations. Very often when we work with young people, their challenges and their problems are very obvious. And it's much more difficult to see the possibility beneath those challenges and problems. But when we put that trust forward and we set expectations instead of laying out our all-knowing knowledge of who they already are, then we have the possibility of getting new results. That's just my opinion. And that and $5 won't get you a Starbucks Venti Super Frappa Latte Yaya. But I think, from my own experience, there's some value there in the idea of trusting forward, putting our work and making it important enough that they succeed, that they understand and believe it. I have 2 brothers serving life sentences. My brother Derek is doing life with a minimum 25. He's 14 years in. My brother Sean, on the end, is doing 57 years. His scheduled release date is 2057, 47 years from right now. Now, if he were lucky enough to live that long, in 47 years, he may have the opportunity to walk more than 50 yards in any direction without someone with a high-powered rifle scoping down on him from a tower, or to hold his great-great-grandchildren that he's never met, if he's lucky enough to live that long. I want you to keep their faces in your mind, because I'm going to talk about them later, and it's very important, the lesson that I learned from being separated from them. And these two are my very best friends in the world, people that I would kill or have died for at one time or another. And I think that their loss is a very important lesson for me in my work, and maybe you too. So keep them in your mind, and I'll talk more about them later. They called us the bad boys. Well, that's me with the afro and the glasses on, just in case. Yeah, I was that big guy in the corner. That's what they just called me, the big guy in the corner. If I cannot see myself as a valuable part of a nation's past, it's hard to imagine myself as valuable to its future. What I've learned working with young people is that there is an absolute disconnect between who they are and the world around them. Many of them, no matter what their socioeconomic or racial or cultural connection, have this sense that they have never been valued, and therefore they could never be valuable. One of the things that I do in my work as a living history presenter is I've learned to take those stories of who we are as a nation, who we have been as a nation, and present those stories in a way to show that at our best we have always stood together. Regardless of color and creed, regardless of religion and faith, those things were not the things that identified us at our greatest moments. The Revolutionary War, people came together that looked like all of us. And they stood up for things they couldn't even understand. There were people who sacrificed, people like Peter Salem and Salem Poor, two African Americans who served in the Revolutionary Army. Both were former slaves, and both were freed and chose to serve the country, even though the British were offering for service to them freedom, land, and opportunity. They stood up because this ideal that those old guys had laid down a few years earlier, this Declaration of Independence, this we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, they actually believed that that might apply to them also. And so across the board they stood and they died and they sacrificed. The Civil War was the same thing. People came together and held the lines because of an ideology, a belief in something greater than race, than culture. They believed in the ideals of this could be someplace different than any other nation, any other time in history. And those are the things that our young people miss, these lessons of our togetherness that punctuate who we are as a nation. Again, this is my opinion, but it has proven itself true, not just in my life. When I was in the third grade, 8 years old, I got my first book. My history book. My teacher said, this is the book, the story of a nation where the important people that make us great live. And I was so excited to finally know about myself. And I started through this book, and I was going, and I was going. 1, that's not me. Chapter 3, I don't see me. Chapter 5, I don't think that's me. And chapter 8, and finally I got to that chapter on American slavery. And there was a picture of a black man with a bull yoke across his back and scarred back from repeated beatings. And the caption read this: the American Negro, comma, slave, period. Now, you want to talk about creating a cage? You want to talk about eliminating possibility for transformation? Those are the statements that do it. When a whole people's experience can be narrowed down to this simple slice, then hopelessness sets in like a cancer. And I'm not saying this because I read it in the book. It's no coincidence that in the third grade I stopped sitting and listened to the teacher read from the Bible after lunch. It's no coincidence that in the third grade I refused to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning again. It's no coincidence that in the third grade I started an extortion ring. We call it the chocolate cartel. Remember those big 50-pound box of chocolates that your teacher used to give you? Just take this out and bring the money back. Well, I was keeping the money and the chocolate. My mama found 30 pounds of chocolate and $50 in my pocket in the closet. And she beat me good, but I learned my lesson. If you ain't never been nothing, you never hope to be anything, if you believe you have to take everything you're going to get, it changes everything about your possibility, your potential, and what you're willing to do. This is what I know. The stories I tell are stories that we all need to know, because at those moments, they prove that all of us tipped into this ideology. all of us sacrificed and gave. And if all of us can believe that we were part of creating a nation, then any of us believe that we could be part of what it becomes next. It's about telling our story so completely and so broadly that everybody sees themselves and understands that they could be the next frame. Let me get off my box. I want you to understand some of the strategies. And this is the work that I do is predicated mostly on redemption. I have been blessed to have survived an incredibly difficult life. That's what we'll say. And I understand that by surviving it, there's a responsibility to make sure other people have the opportunity, if they choose to take it, to survive it. To learn whatever lessons I can and to teach whatever I can teach so that there's a possibility, not a guarantee. And it's the hardest work that we do as youth champions to really understand that we are not beholden to the outcome, that we don't have to guarantee that every child we touch has a transformed life. We just have to guarantee that every child we touch has the possibility, if they're courageous enough to step up and meet the challenge, to transform their life. We open doors. We don't push people through them. So the conversation I want to have is I want to talk to you about a few of the strategies and challenges that I saw taking place in my life. This morning I talked to the youth about the 5 rules, Hasan's rules for success, the rules that I use to kind of turn my life around and to move from who I was to who I'm becoming. But when I talk to adults, I look at the adult figures in my life and the things that they did very clearly that gave me a chance to reshape my life and gave me the courage to move on beyond who I was to who I dreamed of being, that quiet person that I held inside because I didn't want nobody to know I was dreaming that dangerous and that big. And so I'm going to talk about these some. And the first is the insanity principle. I mean, we all know it. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you keep getting what you've been getting. Makes sense, right? 2 plus 2 will always be what? 4. Help me out here. We're adult learners, right? 2 plus 2 will always, somebody had a question mark, 4, you know? 2 plus 2 is 4. You get a calculator, you put 2 plus 2 and you hit the equal sign, it always is 4. It's never 8. It's never 3,247,000. It's never a billion quadrillion. It's always 4. You can't put 2 plus 2 in and say, oh, gosh, maybe this time it'll be different. It won't. No matter how much faith you have in it changing, how much belief, how much prayer you do, how many dances you do around the calculator, when you hit the equal sign, it is what it is. The only way to get a different outcome is if you're brave enough to put something different at the beginning. That starts with us. If we keep doing what we've been doing, we keep getting what we've been getting. Now, the problem is there are some people who are okay with the acceptable range of loss and success. Average is good. Average C plus, you know, I lived on C plus, right? C minus, but I lived on C, okay? But if we want something greater than that, there's going to have to be a greater input. In truth, John Maxwell put it best, it really isn't about breaking even. If you keep doing what you've been doing, your competition gets better and you get worse results. It's a process of eroding results, degrading results. We keep doing what we've been doing the way we've been doing it, and we know that it's not a solid system, that we have to adjust. Our creativity and our intellect have to guide us individually for each child we touch. If we don't do that, we start to lose. And our competition is what? Gangs, teen pregnancy, dropouts. I mean, you see it like I see it. Of course, I get the data every day, the number of kids that come through the system, my system, because they fail out of one of the other systems. And if we keep on doing it the way we've been doing it, breaking even at 500, our competition has figured it out. I grew up in the gang culture. I know how to create empathy and to create a relationship with a child that has not got an adult figure in their life that loves him. I understand how easy it is to take someone and to create something they're willing to die for. And if we don't do a better job of building that connection, making that empathy, building strong relationships, then they will find it somewhere else. And our job is to adjust. I had a staff person tell me, that's not my job. I'm not touchy-feely. My job is to keep these kids and hold them accountable. And I said, okay, well, it might be time for you to find another place to do that. because the work we do as child champions is to do more than just enough. In order for us to get the results we deserve, we are going to have to engage them differently, get out of our comfort zone, because it's not their comfort zone. We talk about them, but it's us very often who's afraid to step into their life completely enough to understand it so we can do something about it. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you keep getting what you've been getting. If that were the case, we'd probably be lucky. But as John Maxwell says, we're probably losing. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. I love that quote. But it multiplies the light and divides the darkness. Hope is free. We get concerned very often about giving false hope. Anybody ever been accused of providing false hope? I have. I was working with a group of young people once, a long-term residency, and the teacher was like, "This is really incredible. I can't believe these kids are so excited about life and talking about what they're going to be, but do you think it's fair, us giving them all this false hope?" And I was like, "Huh? What do you mean?" She says, "Well, you know as well as I do, these kids can't do all that stuff they was talking about." And I thought that was painful. I don't want to be the guy giving false hope, setting people up to fail. And so I had to think about it. And it was very difficult for me to understand because, my mama always told me I could be better than I was if I decided. She wasn't telling me that to put me up on some high place and then kick the rock out from under me. She was telling me that because she believed it. And it didn't cost her anything to believe that. It didn't cost her anything extra to believe, even in the impossible odds, looking at the data of me with a 1.67 GPA, expelled from alternative school, with half blind, half deaf, bad attitude, arrested at 11 years old. It didn't cost her anything extra to still look at me and say, "Baby, if you believe it, then keep on going." And sometimes that's the hardest part for us to do because we don't want to be laden with the guilt when it doesn't work out. You know what I'm talking about? I know you know what I'm talking. I see some heads nodding. And it's a hard piece, but it's an important conversation for us to have. Because very often in this work, and I have done it for years, and I have to train myself out of it, I don't have to be responsible for the outcomes. I just have to make sure that they have a chance at different outcomes. And so I'm going to keep coming back to that because that's going to be the central part of it. Faith and hope, I was talking about them. Faith and hope are action words, verbs. It's like that commercial on TV, do it. In fact, you can't have faith or hope without actually applying them to something. Does that make sense? I mean, you can have faith in winning the lottery, but until you buy a ticket, that faith is wasted. Make sense? If you have faith in the transformation of a child and you don't do anything to make that transformation come about, then you are basically a hypocrite. If you want to say you believe that a child who has been this can become something else, then you have a responsibility to do everything in your power to make sure that child has the opportunity, not the guarantee, but the opportunity to become something else. And hope is the same way. Hope is a reliance on future possibility. I think that's crazy. When that teacher asked me about my false hope, I got nervous. And so I went home and I looked it up. Hope, a reliance on future possibility, something in the future. Then I looked up false. Not true, not able to be true. A lie, it said. And clearly that was not a good place to be. Giving someone a false reliance on future possibility is nothing anybody wants to do. Now, lucky for me, my lawyer kicked in, and I calmed down. Because the thing about a statement like hope is it is a future-lying statement. The important thing you need to understand about a future-lying statement is that it can never be realized in the present. If it cannot be realized in the present, it cannot be proven false. Did you follow that? So, hope, in and of itself as a defined idea, can never be false because it has to be something waiting on the horizon. It can either be present or absent, but if it is present, it is never false. So, you cannot give false hope. It is impossible, by its definition, to be false. The only thing you can do is give hope or not give hope. I slept really good that night once I finally figured it out, because it's really important. The thing that got me hemmed up was that I felt like I was setting young people up by telling them they could be great in spite of their current place, that somehow I was lying to them. Even had a young man come and once call me a liar. Mr. Davis, you lied to me. I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean? He says, Mr. Davis, you told me that I could be anything that I set my mind to and was prepared to work hard for. I said, I did say that. He says, well, you lied because it hasn't happened. I said, well, in that case, maybe you lied to me. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, you told me you believed me when I said it. See, all I did was open the door. You got to walk through it. Our job is to make sure there's plenty of people there to cheer them when they get through the door, or to pick them up and help them figure out how to get it open again. Does that make sense? I don't know. Does that make sense? People are like, I guess so. It seems like it makes sense. Faith and hope, that's my mama. And I just like to show a picture of her because she was my champion. When she picked me up from the police station, that was the start. But she was always there. When I got expelled from college, did I mention I got expelled from college? I got expelled from college twice. And I got expelled from the same college twice. And what you need to know is that I graduated from that same institution. And then when I graduated, I was president of the student body. I was homecoming king. I was voted unanimously by the vice presidents of the college to go to Washington and lobby Congress for work-study funding for the institution. And a few years ago, I received the Outstanding Young Alumni Award. Now, I think that's important for you to understand because this is a process. This is nothing about instant gratification. And working with young people, there ain't no guarantees right now. But what I do know about my own transformation is that there were people willing to continue to believe in me even when it was clear they could give up and people would be all right with it. When people would say, oh, you tried 8 times, you good, you going to go to heaven, you don't matter. But they chose to step in there and to continue. I got expelled from college the first time. I went home and got in some trouble and I had to leave, so I joined the Army. People asked me, why you join the Army? Well, I figured people were going to shoot at me, I should get paid for it. It just made sense to me. It was logic, you know, and then it'd be nice to have 40 guys with the same ideas backing me up. And so that was my safe place. But when I got to the Army, I learned a lot about myself. And I immediately started making plans to go back to this college, Berea College, a very interesting school. If you never heard of it, I still live in Berea. But Berea College is unique because you have to be poor to attend. And if they accept you, they pay all of your academic everything. It's ranked as one of the top 5 small liberal arts educations in the country, and it's free. If they accept you, they pay everything. So you got to understand, when they let me back in twice, they knocked out some kid whose life had been pretty hard, but they still had sense enough to at least, take care of their business. They gave me 3 chances. When I got back the second time, I talked my way back in, and people didn't know how I figured that out, but I got back in, and the next semester, end of that semester, I got expelled again. And it was very, very painful for me. One of the professors had made it clear that I wasn't the right stuff, whatever that is. And you know what I'm talking about. And so even though I started a dialogue with him about what I needed because I knew I was on 5 probation, academic probation, labor probation, social probation, and convocation probation, and secret probation, and I knew that. I told him to let me know what I needed to do, and long story short, didn't work out like that. He called me to his office, explained to me how he saved my final paper for the last, and he spent 8 times as long as he did on all the other papers in the class until he found something that was close enough after he checked out all the sites that I cited. And but he said, I found 2 sentences that are close enough to original text that I'm going to charge you with plagiarism, expel you, fail you in my class, violate probation, you're going to be expelled again. Now, my first thought was, he set me up, he did this, and how terrible he was. My second thought was, I let him do that. If I'd been taking care of my business, no matter how much he disagreed with who I was, he couldn't do that. But he did. And so, at a crossroads, again, I made a decision that people like me didn't get to change. that I've been lying to myself the whole time. I was believing that I could go on and by some miracle become somebody so different than who I'd started. And so I left his office prepared to go and pack up my stuff and get back home to look after my brothers, Derek and Sean, and to hold it down until somebody bigger, badder, faster, stronger finally got the drop on me and put two in the back of my head. I walked across campus that day with my expulsion papers, and I opened my mailbox. And in my mailbox was a paper bag envelope. And inside of it was a bandana wrapped in cellophane plastic. It was a Japanese rising sun, and it had Japanese characters on it. And on the outside was written these words: "Inevitable victory for Hasan. With love, Mom." It was one of those things that still amazes me, because in order for this letter to get there back in the day, she would have had to mail it 4 days before, when I was still pretending life was good and not telling her, because she had sacrificed so much. I didn't want to bring any bad news, when I was still trying to pretend that everything was good, because I'm an actor after all. I can do that. She still found a way to send me a message. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. It multiplies the light and divides the darkness. So I sat with this gift in one hand and my expulsion papers in the other, and it was basic. I had to decide. All of the hundreds of voices that had told me that I was useless, I was trash, I was a thug, I was a monster, there are a lot of voices that said that. And there were a few voices that said, you can do anything you set your mind to, and all you can do is make me a liar. If you could see what I see, you know how great you were. I had to finally decide which of those voices were more powerful. The thing you need to understand is you have those kinds of voices. And we cannot predict when somebody might get a clear message in the height of their crisis. And so if you say it every day to every child you serve, then the possibility of that being the thing that calls them back to sanity is increased. It's very important for me. I still have this. I don't know why, because I don't save much, but I still have this. I have it in one of those freezer bags. I put it in, and zipped it up, and it still says, frozen food on it or something. But I had to save it, because even then, 20 years ago, I knew this was something. This was the point where my life turned around. And so I decided I'm going to leave this school with my head down and my tail between my legs, and I'm going to come back. And everybody laughed when I said that. And a year later, I showed up, and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Hey, you might not remember me," which I know was a lie, because everybody remembered me. But I tried to be a student here and didn't work out, and I think I can make it if you give me a chance. And they said, "I don't think that's going to work." And I said, "Okay, maybe I can talk to somebody about that." And I sat down with the committee and said, nobody's going to look at a place that gave somebody like me 3 chances and say what a terrible place that is. But what if I can do it? What if those few voices really are right and I can be somebody different? Long story short, I convinced them to let me back in. And it became the moment where things started to change for me. When I graduated, I was president of Student Body Homecoming King. I got up to give the opening prayer and welcome at graduation. And my gift was watching my mother walk down the aisle to take her seat just as I took the stage. And I could finally start to see what she'd been looking at all that time. This is the gift that you provide. People that look like you and work hard like you for the possibility. There are no guarantees. We don't ask for them. We don't need them. We just need a chance, so that if we're courageous enough to stand up and to push back against it, we might make it out, move forward. I told you about my brothers, Derek and Sean. And my brother Sean is 2 years younger than me. He's my stepbrother, and Derek's my foster brother. When Sean was about 13, I came home one day, and he had this stuff tied around his head. He had some wires and his little headphones, some cushion, and, I was like, yo, man, what are you doing? His name was Casanova Love. So what are you doing, Cass? He's like, I'm talking to my girl, man. He always talked real smooth like that, right? And so, you ain't talking to nobody. You got wires tied around here. So I took it from him, and I put it on. I said, hello? Hello? Somebody answered. I said, oh, snap, man, where'd you get this? He said, well, I took that old Walkman. Y'all remember Walkmans? Wasn't they cool? I mean, 4 batteries, 30 minutes until the tape started going like this. I mean, iPod is cool, but, Walkman he's taking this old Walkman and his broken telephone, and he'd wire it together. I said, you made this? He said, yeah, I was just looking at that stuff, and I took it apart, and I said, you made this? And I looked at the wires. Did you make this? He said, yes, I made that. Now get this. 25 years ago, sitting in his bedroom, my brother created a telephone headset that worked. And I looked at him and I said, Sean, you could be one of those electric guys. That's all I had, right? One of those electric guys, and it'd make stuff. And he just started laughing. He said, no, man, this is just what I do at the house. Ain't nobody gonna let me do this in the real world. Did you hear that? Have you heard that? That is the single greatest obstacle we face right now. Children who believe that because they have made a choice, they don't have permission to go on and make better choices, that they have somehow locked their fate and sealed their life into this darkness. And that is, whenever I look at Sean, when I go to visit and I talk to him, that is what I hear. I'm great right here, but I can't let it out to the world because I made mistakes. And our job is to find a way to get deep enough into them to let them know that as long as they're brave enough to try again, we're brave enough to believe that they could do something different. So, time is important. It takes patience to make change. We have to be willing to sit with the fact that the first 8 times we said it, it didn't get in, and be willing to say it a 9th time. And to wait, because it's not like Twitter, right? It's not like Facebook or email. Email's slow now, isn't it? We have to be patient. And we have to allow time. Albert Einstein said, time is what we have so everything doesn't happen at once. I like that. Let it all spread out and let it work. Be patient. You may never see the result. In fact, if you do your job well, you won't, because they'll move away from you and your service into something else just because they finally figured it out. But never doubt that this is important work. One of the hardest things that when I work with my own staff and I work with folks around the country, is this sense that sometimes we feel like we're not doing important work because we don't see results every day. But every day we do this work is important because there are children who have no consistent adults in their life except for us, right? Some children who have no constant expectations that are higher than breathing except for us. And until they find some other suitable substitute, it's important for us to sit in that role and to be patient and to continue to provide the possibility. Does that make sense? Forgiveness. I talked to the young people this morning about forgiveness, and it's one of the things that personally has allowed me to move further than most of the other transformations I've made. And for us as professionals, forgiveness is about, remember when we were new workers? Remember that one kid you tried to do something for and it all burned down around you? Or is that just me? Probably not. Remember that one time we tried to do it and we couldn't get it right, or the parent, we all have these things that we didn't do so great. And there's some things that we regret deeply, but we can't change. I was telling the young people this morning that the past is the only immutable characteristic we have left. Right? We used to say race and gender were immutable, but we know better, right? Science has allowed us to change men to women, women to men. We can go from any shade of light to dark, right? We can choose. We have that kind of ability now, but we cannot change the past. We can learn from it. We can let it go and give ourselves permission to move on and make new, different mistakes, but we cannot change it. And as the case, we have to find a way to reconcile that. Because if we don't let that piece go, we can't move forward on the other important stuff that we could be doing. That reservation, that guilt holds us up. Chinese proverb says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. I love that. You know, 20 years, if we would have done it 20 years ago, we would have a perfect tree now. Fruit, leaves for shade. It would be nice, especially on a hot day like today, to have a tree. If we would have done it 20 years ago, that's where we are with our services, aren't we? That kid should have been served 10 years ago when he was in kindergarten, he was in first grade. The teacher failed him, the social worker failed him, the community failed him, mom and dad failed him. Somebody should have saw this coming. You heard it before? Somebody should have saw it coming. Somebody should have done something. We spend so much time looking at that like that, regretting that we didn't do something in time. But we can't do anything about it. The rest of that proverb I love. It says the second best time to plant a tree is right now. So we can sit here bemoaning the fact that 10 years ago things didn't happen right. And 10 years from now we can still be bemoaning the fact that somebody still hadn't done it. Or we can stop right now and mark this point. And make sure that we are not the next person to fail that child, but the first person to serve that child. We can pass it off and blame everybody else for what they didn't do to contribute to this. Or we can own responsibility for making sure that the buck stops here. I know the caliber of the work and the character of the people that do this work all over the country. And I know that most of us are prepared to start now for new results. And I know that some of us who are not probably need to find someplace else to be. It is a thing that I tell my staff all the time. If you cannot in your own head see the possibility of changing a child's life, then you are no use to us. Because your doubt will prevent you from being creative enough to find a way where there is no way. If you cannot get your head around whoever that child has been being different than who you can help them become, then you are not on the team. And if you're not on the team, you got to take the uniform off. You can't call yourself a champion. You can call yourself something else, but you're not a champion if you're not out there every day willing to invest in the possibility. Now, like I said, my opinion, $5 won't get you Starbucks coffee, but I really believe it. Deserved victory. Y'all remember Winston Churchill? I mean, not personally, but you remember Winston Churchill? He was, the Prime Minister of Great Britain during the World War II. And I always think that Winston Churchill is a great example of the challenges that we face even now. I love this one quote, deserved victory. It was a Winston Churchill quote. It was on the posters like our, Uncle Sam posters. He was always there, deserved victory. Now, Great Britain was being decimated by the Nazi war machine. They were being outmanned, outgunned, outplaned, everything. And Nazi was just like, why don't you guys just roll over, submit to us, we won't destroy you. We'll just co-opt you, because it's a great deal. You get to keep your name and keep your land. You'll just be a suburb, great Germany. But Churchill said, no, thank you. Not going to work for us. He said, every man, every woman, every child will stand up and resist this tyranny. If we go down, we will all go down, and the world will know we deserve victory. Because there'll be no question, he said. Our intent and our work every day will prove that if things were even and all things were balanced, we would have overcome this. Deserving victory is not about the outcome that we get, but the way we go about our work every day. If we can invest all of our energy and all of our passion every time we encounter a child and try and change that life, then we don't leave anything out. We know even when those circumstances go beyond us and we can't get the result we wanted, it's not because we didn't put in our piece. It's because some other outside force managed to get a better stronghold, but that's not us. Deserving victory is not about the outcome. It's about the work we do every day. And reminding ourselves every day that we do important work is very difficult sometimes, isn't it? How many of y'all have a Rocky dance? A Rocky dance. Y'all remember Rocky? Da-na-na, You know, Eye of the Tiger, a Rocky dance. You remember when Rocky was getting ready for his fight with Apollo Creed, right? And he was running through the streets of Philadelphia. He was, yeah, can you do that? Can you show it? Do it again. Can you stand up and do it? That's right. That's right. There you go right there. That's it. A Rocky dance. And so what was great about that was he was getting ready for his fight. You know, he was chasing the chickens around. He was fighting the meat and the beef. I didn't want to eat that meat after that, but he was ready for his fight. He ran through the streets of Philadelphia up to the Museum of Art, and he jumped up there and he started doing his dance. He said, I'm ready. Bring it on. Whatever you got, I can take it. I can give out more than that. It was a celebration dance. I'm ready for the world dance. I know that I'm prepared dance. What we don't have too often in this work is a Rocky dance. We don't have a way to remind ourselves every day that we do great work. We wait for these long spans, like for one child to finally figure it out, for one family to finally show up at 3 meetings in a row, for one kid to finally get out of the system completely. Now, the problem with those long spans is if we go too long without some feeling of accomplishment, we start to think that we're not accomplishing. We start forgetting that baby steps are still what? Steps. And so the Rocky dance is that thing you do to remind yourself. I got a Rocky dance that I don't do in public anymore. I made a kid cry once, and my therapist says that I'm doing better now. But, when I was a kid, I used to do my Rocky dance. No, for real. When I was a kid, I used to do my Rocky dance when I could make it from home to school without getting into a fight, because that was hard for me to do some days, right? And then once I got good at that, I started doing my Rocky dance if I could make it a whole day in class without going to the principal's office, which was harder, but I got good at it because and so I started doing my Rocky dance because the thing about celebration is that it's a mind-body thing. It's a physical cue that reminds your mind to keep going, because once you feel that celebration, your mind starts getting, I like that, let's do it again. And so you start looking for more reasons to celebrate. Your mind goes, I like that, let's do it again. So it's a way for us to start to mark our time so that we realize that every day we're in this work, it's important. That because you're here, the possibility of a child's life changing happens every day. Not every other day, not every Monday except on holidays. Every day you show up, there's a possibility. And we forget that. And when we forget it, we start to feel like it's not important work. And if we start to feel that, this is one of the fields with the highest burnout rate of any field. Because people just wander away. Because they don't realize how important they were holding that gap, hefting that big shield and fighting every day for the possibility, not the guarantee, for the possibility of a changed life. And so we need to cultivate a Rocky dance. Maybe we should practice our Rocky dance right now, okay? I'm gonna count to 3, and I want you to practice your Rocky dance, all right? Just give us a little glimpse. You ain't got to show the whole thing, okay? But it's a very personal thing. But on the count of 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Let me see your Rocky dance. Oh. See, that is the problem with adult learners. They already know they don't have to do anything. With kids, you give them, they're like, do I have to do it? But I understand. I was just joking to see if anybody was going to actually do it. Some people didn't even pretend to almost kind of move, which is okay. I'm all right with that. But some people did, and thank you all very much. But you need to cultivate a celebration, a way in your mind to remind yourself every day that you do good work, because you do good work every day. And it's important that you understand that and celebrate it yourself, so that you're not waiting for that one kid to finally come up and smile at you and say thank you, because they probably ain't. Even if they think it, they ain't going to say it out loud. So, you have to sometimes take it on yourself. Believe and act as if it were impossible to fail. Mr. Kettering said that. Sometimes I get a question. What's the magic moment? People want to know that magic moment. How much time do I have to spend and invest in the child before they finally get right? And my mama tell you, I'm still ain't right. I'm just more right, okay? But when I process my own experience, there are a couple things that really hit me. When my mother picked me up from the police station, big. When Dr. Lorraine Wilson challenged me in alternative school, big. When I was 19, I'd made it into college and I was living a dual life. I'd go up to Kentucky and I'd be trying to become a college student. You know, I was telling you know, I became a cheerleader, right? A cheerleader, okay? Now, y'all saw the picture of me, okay? I went home with my Breed College cheerleading jacket on. You know, I was like, yeah, I'm a cheerleader. My brother's like, yo, what are you doing, man? You can't wear that outside. We'd be fighting all day. You got to, they made me give it to my baby sister, right? No, you got to take that off and keep it off, you know, because there's something, no matter how much I wanted to change, there's some things that were just real. And so I would do this thing where I would do my transformation. I'd be at school trying to be that guy, and I'd go back home and I'd slip back into that other guy. And I went home once, and every time I go home, I'd have to fight each of my brothers. Full contact, no holds barred, 20 minutes. If I was still standing when we were done, I was still good. I could go out. They could trust that I wouldn't get myself or somebody else hurt if things went wrong. And so we did our dance, and once it was clear that I could still manage myself, we made plans to go out. My father was a reggae singer, Rasta, and he had this new band, and I was curious to hear him because I never heard him, and I heard him singing in the shower all the time, and I was a little concerned, you know. And so we were going to go out and check out. It was to this small club, and my mom was going to be there, my sisters were going to be there, my youngest brother Tony, and so we were going to go. And Derek had this old pickup truck, a black S10, Chevy S10 with a red stripe down the side, no grill on the front. And we were going, and Derek was driving, Sean was in the middle, and I was at the door. And we were looking for this little club. We couldn't find the club, so we pulled into this parking lot, this gas station. And thinking about it now, it would have been really easy to walk inside and say, hey, y'all know where this club is? But we were three guys in a pickup truck, right? It didn't cross our mind. And we're sitting there thinking about the club, and you can feel this bass starting to build. Doo, 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 doo. We look over a few seconds later, this old hoopty comes rolling into the parking lot, gliding. And it slides in, and they stop, tinted windows, and they open the doors, and these six brothers roll out, and they looking hard, like they own everything they look at. And they look over at us. My brother Derek says, man, you see the way they looking at us? And I'm like, no, man, I'm just trying to figure out where the club is, right? But Derek saw something. And so he puts the truck in drive, and he pulls in, and he blocks their car in. So they all start rolling back out the store. And so I'm sitting at the door. So I'm like, it's okay, guys. I'm just trying to find this club. Maybe y'all can help me. I still got my college hat on, right? I'm a college student. So I'm like, maybe you guys can help us. And they just start off yelling and cursing back and forth. And Derek is yelling at them. And I'm still going, we're just trying to find this club. I haven't switched my hats completely. And so I'm sitting here trying to manage all this, and Derek is finally getting exasperated. And so he taps the 38 he keeps on the dashboard just to let him know. If you're looking for stupid, we are stupid waiting for you, right? And so he taps the 38, and I look at the kids, and they don't flinch. A 38, you must be out of your mind. They go off, right, escalating, and I'm still trying to keep everything. Derek, why don't we just drive, man? We're just trying to find this club. Maybe you could help us out. And I'm trying my best to keep all this stuff going because I know I'm a college student. All those people believe in me and my ability to communicate. I can do this. This is the new me, and it's not working for me. And so Derek is yelling back and forth to this guy, and finally Sean starts. Sean's only got two gears. He got neutral and overdrive. He is really cool, or he's not. And I can feel his body starting to shake. I can feel his temperature rising. I know he's about at that point. And so I'm telling him, Sean, it's okay. Derek, let's drive, dude. We are just trying to find this club. So finally, Sean gets fed up with it. And the old S10 has a little spot right behind me. The seat bends up. And tucked in that spot is a Uzi machine gun. And so Sean starts pushing the seat forward, trying to get to the machine gun. And I know that if he pulls it, it's over. Because he's not one of those guys that threatens with weapons. And so I'm pushing back on the seat saying, no, Sean, we can't do that. Derek, let's just drive. Dude, we are trying to find this damn club. Why don't you help me out here? Because I don't. And so I'm talking to Sean, and I'm trying. See, I'm the oldest. And there was a time when all I had to do was say it, and it was done. But that wasn't me. That wasn't the college me. That wasn't the transformed, looking at the world different me. And my brother Sean called me egghead college boy. I was just a visitor. And so it changed a lot about our relationship. And so I'm trying to keep Sean from pulling the machine gun, and I'm focused on him. And I guess this kid who's screaming and leading the pack thinks that, I don't know, thinks we're praying, thinks we're afraid. I don't know. he don't know I'm trying to keep him alive. And so he escalates. And the whole time I'm here with Sean, I'm thinking about my mama. And I'm thinking about how she don't deserve to come down to the jailhouse and visit her boys. How don't she deserve to hear somebody else say you did your best, but you know it was something beyond your control. And so I can't let him pull this machine gun out. And then this kid over here starts screaming, I got something for that little 38 of yours. You think you're so bad? And he rolls back toward the car, and his boy opens the back door, and he reaches in. And I know he's reaching for a shotgun, because if it was my car, it'd be there. And all of a sudden, everything changed, because as bad as I don't want my mama coming down to the jail, there ain't no way she's coming to the morgue. And so I stopped thinking. I realized this ain't the place. This ain't the time for an intellectual conversation. And I leaned up on the seat and saw him pull the machine gun out. Now, if you've never heard the charging handle of a Uzi chamber that first round, it's a very distinct sound, and that round locks. And everything froze. And all the guys started diving and screaming, and Sean aims the machine gun out the window, and this kid's coming out of the car, and he's screaming, oh my God, please don't kill me. And he's looking me dead in the face. And I can almost look down the sight of the machine gun into his chest. And all of a sudden, he might be 15, maybe 16. And he's screaming, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. And I'm telling myself, this is not my fault. I didn't do this. I gave him all the chances. He ignored the warnings. And what happens, happens. And I'm sitting here between heartbeats and all this static in my head. All those words, thug and monster and menace and above all that, as clear as a bell, I hear my mama. If you could see what I see when I look at you, then you know how great you were. I hear Dr. Lorraine Wilson. I think you can accomplish anything you set your mind to, and all you can do is make me a liar. Out of all those voices screaming in my head, the only voices that were clear were those few voices that I chose to make important. So I reached up and I grabbed the barrel and I turned to my brother and I made him take his finger off the trigger. Now, if you talk to Sean, he'd tell you a different story. I went down to visit him a couple years ago in prison, and I sat down and I said, man, you remember that day? That's all I said. And he said, yeah, man, I remember that day. I was about to air all those cats out and you was begging me not to kill them. And at first I was like, I ain't beg you. Right? I'm the big brother, but then I thought about it. What if I begged him? What if I had enough in me and finally learned enough that I was willing to beg for somebody's life? I was okay with that. But whatever it was, me making him or me begging him, he took his finger off the trigger. And I turned to this kid standing there and I said, lay down, boy. And you, thank God, I'm not the man I was 2 years ago. 'Cause what you just put me through, you would never see the sun rise again. And we peeled out of there like the Dukes of Hazzard. We drove about a mile, and I don't think anybody even breathed. We got to a little side road, and we finally did that nervous giggle you do when you're too tough to cry. And we found the club. And I went in, and my sisters and my mother and my father were there. And my mother gave me that look that mothers give you when they know something. She gave me that look, and we never talked about it. But the next morning, it was my second day home for a 2-week visit. And I realized that I would never be that lucky again in my whole life. So I packed up everything that I owned in my mother's house, and I gave her a kiss, and I made a promise that I would not return. I would not darken her doorway until I could finally see the man she'd been looking at. It took me a long time, and I had to sacrifice a lot to finally get a glimpse of that person. But you need to understand that this is the real gift of our work. The possibility that when things get very difficult and there's a choice to be made, it's not volume, it's not numbers that help those decisions. It's clarity. It's compassion. It's the kind of things that we bring to the table every day. The ability to believe without any investment, with no hope of a return, but a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle, right? Our job is to continue to believe in spite of the empirical evidence of the possibility. And if we believe long enough, every once in a while we'll have an opportunity to recoup that by clear actions of other people that we've influenced. And most times we won't ever see it, but it does happen. And I'm not saying it because I saw the Oprah Winfrey Dr. Phil 2-hour special about it, right? Dr. Oz didn't come and work on me. I know this better than I know anything in my lived life. This is the case. I'm standing here because people like you chose to believe it was possible, gave me the courage to stand up one more time than I got knocked down and to try it again. And that's an important gift that you should never underestimate. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe once said that if you treat a man as he is, he will remain as he is. And if you treat a man as he can and should be, he will become as he can and should be. I think that is a powerful statement of the possibilities that we provide, to see them not in their current place, but in their deserving place. If we keep putting that vision forward, some, not all, but some might have the courage to actually reach for it, to actually attain it. And that's the work we do every day. I want to close by y'all know what this is? Not rocket science. It's a green piece of cloth, right? People are like, oh, I don't know. Is it? You know what should I say? It's a piece of cloth, right? Just a piece of. Like, gosh, I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong answer. You know? It's a piece of cloth, right? You know, I was working with a group of young people. Want to say, anybody know what this is? And some kid said, ugly. I was like, okay, what else is it? Okay, it's a piece of cloth, but it's still ugly. You know, when I was working during the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial, I had the opportunity to tell York's story, an incredible story across the country. And I found myself in the Northwest for a long time. A really long time, like a couple years. You know, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Idaho. I was in Idaho a long time. And so I found myself in one of the towns in Idaho that had a Walmart that was open 24 hours a day. You know, some Walmarts are not open 24 hours a day, especially in small towns. But I found one, and I was walking through there about the third night, about 3 in the morning, because I don't sleep a lot. And I was walking through the fabric section. You know, I was like, ooh, I can't believe somebody making something, you know, that kind of thing. I don't do it all the time, right? But every once in a while, that's the last place left to look. And so I was walking through the fabric section, and there was a table in the fabric section called the discard table, right? The don't nobody want this no more table. And there was one piece of fabric neatly folded and laid out on the table. So it was like the single most unwanted piece of fabric in all of Idaho, right? And it just struck me as wrong. It had a $1 price tag on it, so I bought it. And now I take it with me all over the country, always asking people to help me figure out how to justify spending the whole $1 on it. And so I always take it and ask people to give me ideas of things I can do with it. So I was hoping you all could give me some ideas of what I could do with it. Any thoughts? Yes? A cape? Oh, I love that. You know, I'm a comic book fan. I actually have 10,000 comics in my collection. And one of the things that I learned how to read with comics. because of my dyslexia, the challenge, I was able to do picture word agreement. And so comic books actually made me into a proficient reader because I could understand the story, then I could figure out the words that have to be there for the story to make sense. And so it was, again, one of those things about being creative. We have to find ways where there's no way, new ways to get there. But capes are good. You ever notice when people put capes on, their voices change? They say words like justice. I like capes, clearly. What else?
Turban?
A turban? This could be a good turban. You know, and I can't tie a turban anymore. You know, I grew up in the Nation of Islam, and funny thing, you may think it's funny. I think it was funny. But as a kid, me and my brothers had turbans. And so during Christmas, we always got to be the three wise men in the Christmas play, right? And so it was like, you know, we always had a role, which was maybe that's why I'm an actor now, right? But it was always really cool, you know, because we had the gear, right? You know, and there was always a kid like, you're a wise man turban. And I was like, wait a minute, I got myrrh, I got frankincense, I got gold, and you're goat number 3, and you giving me grief, you know? I said, I got the turban, I got the job, right? And so a turban would be good. What else? A table, this would be a good tablecloth. Like, now serving Dahmer, party of 2. I'm sorry, that was bad. Never mind, let's forget that one. What else? Yes?
The new Kentucky flag.
I think if it was a new Kentucky flag, it would say UK and it'd be very blue. I don't think I could get away with this, but this could be a new flag, you know, the Green Nation. This could be our recycling flag, right? You know, the Green Nation. What else?
I think a lot of those discards unfortunately turn into green berets.
Green berets. Ooh, it'd take me some work, but I can make a green beret out of this. That would be cool. Huh? You're right. A lot of them wind up serving.
That's right.
Some by choice, some not, but they get in there and they get to work. Absolutely right. My father was one of those. My stepfather was. What else? Yes?
I say nothing.
Nothing?
Because
Okay.
the whole point is this presentation you saw it as a disregarded product. So bring it out to this presentation.
So pick it up.
That's all it needs to be.
It just needs to be present.
Right.
It needs to be somewhere being used. I like that. Absolutely. Anything else?
Put up on the wall as a teacher and use it as put pictures.
Oh, yeah, because you used to put pictures on and displays for the classroom. Very good. And somebody said a shawl? Who turned off the heat? Right? And what else? Or it could be a scarf, right? You always have to do scarves just right. It's all about the right? You got to do it right. Or you can put a piece of jewelry on it and call it an ascot, like Fred on Scooby-Doo. It's not a scarf, it's an ascot. He always says, right? What else? Is Parkside colors green?
Yeah, green and white.
Oh, very cool. You know, this could be Parkside Rangers. Did I see that somewhere? Okay, I saw a sign that said Ranger. Parkside. Okay, that could be a Parkside Rangers. What else?
Like the hole in the middle, little poncho.
A poncho, yeah, because it gets wet up here sometimes, doesn't it? You can make a poncho. I guess if you don't put a hole in the middle, you could be a confused ghost, right? You know. Yeah. Or somebody said once, you can do a magic trick. I was like, I don't know. Let's see. That was good. Come on. I did that once, and somebody said, "Oh man! Oh wait a minute," because they thought I did a real trick. What else?
And some yellow letters and Green Bay Packers.
Oh, I see where we're going. I'm starting to see a theme here. So go Packers! I just said that so I can make it out of town. Okay. Every once in a while. Well, what about a sling? Oh, you ever notice when people's mouths hurt, they always tie their head up? I've never understood that about the dentist office, but something about tying your ears up makes your teeth feel better. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, what's the fabric? Is it a polyester? Is it a cotton? Is it a knit stretch?
Yes.
Well, I'm just thinking because sometimes, children when they have a baby blanket, and they just like the way it feels, just the way it
Right.
feels.
Okay. They're comforting them
They
because.
keep them for years and years. In my daughter's case, 15 when the cat finally had baby.
Yeah.
You know,
So like a baby, it could be your
Maybe it's just something
your security blanket. Very good. Absolutely. You guys are very nice. But every once in a while, with young people, always get somebody to yell out, "Diaper!" you know. And they always say it like I won't do it, you know. And I'm always like, I'm an actor. Come on. I am not scared, okay? And so, and they usually say loincloth next, and I go, can't help you. Diapers as far as I go, because there's too much fabric for a loincloth is what I always say. What else? A skirt? This could be a... Let me get right. Okay. I got it. Does that look good? All right. Huh? Oh, it looks like an apron. You saying it's too long for a skirt? Too short? And she says it like, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know what you mean. You got no idea what you mean. You know? And if I did, okay. Okay, yeah. All right, I feel better. I feel good. All right. I feel more comfortable with that length, too. Thank you for helping me out. That's good. Well, you know, the truth is, it's a plain old piece of cloth. I bought it at the Walmart store. I had a kid ask me once, Mr. Davis, why you waste your money on that? And at first I said, I don't know, but then I told him I'd think about it. And I have. I call it my anything cloth because that's what we get. Just like our kids. Sometimes, whether it's true or not, they think they're sitting up on that table. They think they have been thrown away. And sometimes, because of the condition they're in, it's very difficult for us to see the possibility. But did you see what happened? Just a couple of minutes, a creative exercise, stretching our intellect, we were able to find things that this ugly piece of cloth could do, could be useful, could be present. This is the most important part of our work. The title of this workshop was Away from No Way. That is exactly what this is about. When other people refuse or are incapable of seeing more possibility, we step in. We have to take a deep breath, and we have to turn it around, and we have to find the right corner, but we are sure that we can do something with it. And that's the gift. The important thing for you to understand is your work is important every day. And I think for me, as a duly appointed representative of all those young lives you will never get to talk to, but you will touch, I want to make sure you understand that this is about gratitude. There is no doubt in my mind that but for people like you, my life would not be this sweet. I know what my outcomes were. I look at my brothers, or I visit my cousins' graves, and I know what the expectation was. But because somebody stepped in and continued to believe in the impossible, I finally found the courage to go looking for the impossible. That's the gift you give. That is what makes this the most important work in the world. And I want to make sure that there's no confusion about how appreciated this work is. More money might be helpful, but I ain't got that. But I can tell you that your presence is important every day, and I hope that you cultivate the kind of celebration dance that will allow you to be in this work as long as you want to be in it, and believe that every day that you're in it, you have the ability, not the guarantee, but the ability to create a change in a young life. So I want to thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here. I have no idea what time it is, but I know we're around. Huh? Is that so? We have some time. So we will have some time and to just take questions. So I'll be glad before we start the next workshop to see if there are questions, comments, or concerns. Okay. But first, I want to thank you all for being here, for the opportunity to be with you, and I'll take questions in just a minute. Thank you all very much. Thank you.